Ephesians again at chapter number 6. We are up to verse number 16, talking about the riches of God's grace. We've been talking these weeks about the armor of God. We've already stood having our loins girt about with truth and having on the breastplate of righteousness and our feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. And this morning I want to look in verse number 16. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. Thank you. You may be seated. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of our God shall stand forever. The next piece of armor that we want to study is the shield of faith. Let's look at why this piece of armor is so important that the Lord would say in Paul's writing, above all, he says in verse 16, above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. Above all does not mean that the shield of faith is above the breastplate of righteousness and the shoes of peace or the girdle of truth or the helmet of salvation. It does not mean above all in terms of importance. It means above all meaning that when you get all these other things, it doesn't make sense to have those if you don't have any faith. Faith holds all these others together. Above all, he says, above all, taking the shield of faith. I want you to look with me at how this shield of faith is designed. Paul may have been talking about his Jewish experience when he looked at the shoes of peace and the breastplate of righteousness and the girdle of truth. But remember, he is quarantined with some Roman soldiers. And he's looking at the Roman soldier and how the Roman soldier is armed or adorned. And Paul uses some likenesses from being around these Roman captors. They are hardened, battle-scarred soldiers. They have been through battles, and they would not dare go in a battle without a shield. Now, one shield that they had was a little small shield that was usually attached to their left arm that was held on by some straps that they could use in arm-to-arm combat. If they were right-handed, the shield was on the left side, and if they were left-handed, the arm shield was on the right arm, strapped to the soldier's arm so that they could use it in hand-to-hand combat. But that's not the shield Paul is talking about right here. He's not talking about that design for the shield of faith when he talks about the believer. The word is thurios in the Greek, which means a door. It's a shield that's approximately the size of a small door. It's 4 feet by 2 feet, 4 feet wide, long rather, by 2 feet wide. And it's the size or the accoutrement of a door. It's designed to cover the whole body of the soldier. Now, you might think that 4 feet is not a whole lot to cover you, but you have to remember that in the first century, men were much smaller than men are now. They're not Brother Abner size in the first century. They were at least 5 feet or 5 feet 2 was a tall man in the first century. Now we are 6 and 7 feet now, but back then they were small men so they could hide behind a shield that was 4 feet high and 2 feet wide. The shield was made of a solid piece of wood covered with metal or a heavily oiled leather. You will see why in a minute. And it was curved along its edge, along the length of it, to provide protection not only for a frontal attack, but it was curved on the side for attacks that came from the side of the soldier. When Roman soldiers went to battle, those carrying the shields, the thurios, the shields, those carrying the shields marched in the vanguard of the army, or in the front of the army. They marched in an arrangement, in a formation called a phalanx, or phalanx in English, presenting their enemies with an impenetrable barrier. These shields were held together. They put them close together, shoulder to shoulder, so that the entire battlefield, the length of it, looked like a phalanx rather. It was a battlefield in array of soldiers who had these shields, and the entire shields, especially if they were metal, they gleamed in the sunshine. And then some other men would get on top of those who already had the shields on their knees, and the entire battlefield looked like an army arrayed in a phalanx that was hard to penetrate that barrier. It was an awesome sight. It was a fearsome sight to see all of those soldiers arrayed for battle with their shields out, shoulder to shoulder, in an impenetrable bond and barrier that it frightened the enemy, because they looked like there were more people than there really were. The church can put the world and the devil in fright if we would stand shoulder to shoulder in a phalanx with our shields bearing the armor of God, letting the world know that you cannot penetrate this barrier, because not one of us will fall for the other of us. It's a picture of a battlefield that's ready to go into action. They look more fearsome than they really are. You've perhaps seen on television, or you've seen at a zoo or an aquarium, these puffer fish. A puffer fish is really small, but he blows himself up to make himself look extremely big to frighten his enemies. He's not that big. He just makes himself look big. We Christians by ourselves are no match for the world and the devil. But all of us together are a mighty tool in God's hand. That's why you need to make up your mind. If you're a serious Christian, make up your mind that the devil ain't going to ever leave you alone, because you are too mighty a tool in God's hands. And God behind you with a phalanx, God providing the protection, the shield. You don't need to be afraid. The choir just got through telling us that if God is with us, we don't have to fear anything. Fret not because of evildoers, neither be envious against the workers of iniquity. They shall soon be cut off like grass. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. The psalmist says, he's my shield and my buckler. He's my fortress. He's my high tower. He makes me look bigger than I really am. The scripture calls him an elder brother. And those of us here who were raised with brothers knew we didn't have to have any problems if we had some brothers. Guys in Eunice were scared of me and Johnny, and we were nothing. We were just the runt of the litter in our family. But they were afraid of my older brother. If we would say that we were Carl's brother or Lee's brother or Ray's brother, they'd leave us alone, not because of us. We just looked bigger because who we had behind us. We Christians look bigger because of our elder brother. We have Jesus Christ behind us and the shield. Above all, you need to have the shield with you, because if you have shoes but no shield, a breastplate but no shield, a girdle or helmet with no shield, a sword with no shield, you're still vulnerable to the attacks of the enemy. So the shield was designed to look like a phalanx when they stretched across the battlefield. They were arrayed in this formation that made them look formidable as an opponent. I used to think, before I knew any better, that the passage of scripture in Matthew that says, upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I used to think for the longest time that we were inside the church trying to keep the devil out. But that's the wrong application of that passage. The devil is trying to keep us in here because he knows if we go out, we are a formidable adversary. Because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. The shield was designed on their arm for arm-to-arm combat, but the shield was designed to hide them, to make them more formidable than they really were. That's how that shield of faith was designed. But now, I want you to look with me at how the shield of faith is described. Paul says, above all, taking the shield, not of prayer, the shield not of compassion, the shield not of mercy, the shield not of grace, but above all, take the shield of faith. Now, the faith Paul refers to here is not the doctrines that we believe. The faith here he is referring to is simple, childlike trust in God. It's the belief that our salvation is in Jesus Christ, and with it comes blessings, daily provisions, and strength for our journey. The faith that Paul talks about here is the faith that saves us. It is the faith that grows us. It is the faith that strengthens us and calms us and establishes us, because you can have all of the aforementioned parts of the armor, but without faith, you'll drop it and run in the midst of the battle. Faith is the necessary, non-negotiable component of the Christian life. You need to have faith. Ephesians at chapter 2, verses 8 through 9 says, for by faith are you saved, by grace rather are you saved, through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast.